Yeah. And the way, because I was boo-hoo-hoo when the tenant buyers were not behaving. I started reflecting and saying, does this work? Am I not, what am I doing wrong? And I was the victim. And so I went through the eviction process. I said, okay, when I evict them, I'm gonna sell the house traditionally. And then I looked at the projection of when I sell the house and how much I'm gonna make. And it's six figures. So I went from boo hoo hoo to wow, this is a great opportunity. Right? Even though I have to come out of pocket to pay the mortgage, this is a great opportunity for me I'm going to make six figures. So I went from boo hoo hoo to this is going to be a great year. 2025 is going to start out to be an awesome year because I'm going to make six figures on just one house. And now now I'm rejuvenated. Now I'm like, hey, I want to do this 3, 4, 5 more times this year. Welcome back, everybody, to Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co-host, Rusty Ham on the West Coast. Rick, my other co-host, is on the East Coast. Rick, say hi.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me, Rusty, again, as always.
Yeah, for sure. Rick, you didn't talk about the weather again. It's very windy out. Windy in Southern California. Yeah, it was very windy in Southern California again, but the fires have died down, so we're good on our end. However, a lot of people have been displaced because it's almost like we talked about the hurricanes in Florida and South Carolina, or just houses were just destroyed. So feel bad for those families out there where they're displaced. And we got to protect those people because they have to rent now somewhere. And there's landlords out here that are going to take advantage of that, which is not cool. Then we also have investors who are trying to buy that land that the houses are now. So there's a lot of things. There's some shady stuff going on out here that we're trying to protect. Rick, you said it was cold?
Yeah, it's supposed to drop down this week. It's actually started to get down. So I think we're looking at temperatures in the single digits.
Awesome. No, thank you. Thank you. All right, Rick, let's get going here with our warm up. And our warm up again is our 3 pillars, which is mindset, skill set, and systems. Today, we're going to talk about mindset, and specifically, because again, we're both coaches in the Wicked Smart community, the Smart Real Estate Coach community. And we talk about the potential of doing a deal a month, right? Again, terms is not easy. I've talked about this. We have talked about this in multiple podcasts. Buying houses on terms is not easy, right? Because it's a delayed cash sale. The seller, you're trying to find that seller that is open to the idea of waiting for the money. In a society where it's instant gratification, not a lot of people are open to waiting, even if they will make more that way versus traditionally.
But they're out there.
They're out there, and that's why you got to. And this is what we're going to talk about, because students get frustrated. Are there people in the community that do a deal a month? And it depends. Depends on if you're making the dials like you're supposed to. So, talk about the mindset on, because you're kicking butt, Jessica's kicking butt. Talk about the mindset and going into creating a business where you're doing a deal a month.
Yeah. And I've heard this question come up quite a bit recently because people are setting their 2025 goals. And has anybody done a deal a month? Not for quite some time. And not everybody puts in the work and treats it like a serious business. Yes, they're okay with getting 3 or 4 deals a year. And that's fine. It's their own goals that they want to set to what suits them. But if you plan on doing, I guess when you ask that question, you don't want to compare yourself. Has anybody done that? Question is, are you willing to put in the work to do what you want to accomplish? If you want to do a deal a month, then we have to follow our KPIs and we can project whether that's possible or not based upon, and if you're doing the work consistently.
Right. We talked about it last week, right? Not tracking, you're not winning, right? And the reason why we track is it can be predictable, right? We know if you make a certain amount of calls, 15% are going to pick up. We know that those people that you pick up, we know that the people that pick up, it's around 35% are going to be converted into a lead. So if we know those numbers and we know that those leads are going to, you need a certain amount of leads per month to go on a certain amount of appointments, right? And we know that if you go on a certain amount of appointments per month, you're going to get a deal a month. So hypothetically, you're probably around 60 to 70 leads a month, which is around 4 or 5 appointments a month, which is technically one, we call them takens, which is getting the house under contract a month. Now, are you going to get one a month? When we talk about one a month, we talk averaging, right? You might have a dry month. You're going to have dry months. You're going to go on 4 or 5 appointments and nothing's going to happen, right? But then the next month you might two or three might pop. Again, we're talking averages at this point, but it can be done. And we get it. When someone asks, has somebody in the community done one a month? People in the community have different situations, right? A lot of people have W-2s. And in order to get a deal a month, you almost have to be like us, right? And have time on your hands where you have time to dial yourself. And then you also are hiring a VA and then you've hired an EA, right? So in order to get a deal a month, you have to build and stack, right? Are you going to get a deal a month when you first start community? No, right? It's about stacking. So it's about getting those 2 or 3 deals, like you said, in a year, building that revenue, those payday ones and getting some payday twos. And then now you're stacking and now you're hiring people to make more dials. And when you make more dials, obviously you're going to talk to more people, which means you're going to get more leads, which means you're going to go on more appointments, blah, blah, blah. It's a steamrolling, right? So if you're a solopreneur, is it feasible to get a deal month if you're full time and you're just doing everything by yourself, right?
Yep. And the thing is, you've got the support system behind you. So anybody is capable of doing it. It's just, are you aligning yourself properly to get to that point? I know a couple of years ago, I said my goals are to get a deal a month. And I had a bunch of other goals, including leaving my W-2. When I looked back over the year, at the end of the year, I thought I certainly didn't get my deal a month, but I did accomplish this and this. So I focused on the stuff I did accomplish rather than the stuff I did not accomplish. And you reset the following year. Maybe I didn't get 10, but I got 4 or 5.
No, and that's important because I talked about it in the community with the book, The Gap in the Gain, right? Yes, you had a deal a month goal. You didn't hit it. Did you whine about it? Did you cry about it? But you were disappointed, obviously. But what you said is looked at the gain that happened, right? You were able to generate X amount of money based on those 5 deals that you did. And then you're looking at the gain, you're looking at all the positives, all the different nuances of each deal. And then you're able to now, from each of those deals, now you can coach other students, right? Because you went through it. You did these deals, you've gone through it, and now you can say, hey, on this deal, I did this and this. And the student's going to be like, oh, okay, cool. I can do that. So it's huge that you look at the game, right? I didn't get what I wanted to accomplish as far as deals, but I'm definitely a much better coach now because of certain things I've been going through because I have a house under contract and the tenant buyers, I always say they're not behaving very well, but I'm learning a lot. And now I can take those learning experiences and I can take those to the students and say, hey, this is what you need to do.
Right. If you may not get a deal a month, that's significant. But I can, looking at my average 3 paydays, the trademark 3 paydays of 89,000 per deal. So, well, you got 4 deals in a year. How many people make $400,000 or $500,000 in a year?
Not a lot. It's a very small percent, by the way. Yeah. And the way, because I was boo-hoo-hoo when the tenant buyers were not behaving, I started reflecting and saying, does this work? What am I doing wrong? And I was the victim. So I went through the eviction process. I said, okay, when I evict them, I'm going to sell the house traditionally. And then I looked at the projection of when I sell the house and how much I'm going to make. And it's 6 figures. So I went from boo hoo hoo to, wow, this is a great opportunity. right? Even though I have to come out of pocket to pay the mortgage, this is a great opportunity for me I'm going to make six figures. So I went from boo hoo hoo to this is going to be a great year. 2025 is going to start out to be an awesome year because I'm going to make six figures on just one house. And now I'm like,
Hmm.
now I'm rejuvenated. Now I'm like, hey, I want to do this 3, 4, 5 more times this year.
Yeah.
So I can create that generational wealth, right? That it's just gonna keep rolling. Am I gonna make six figures this year on every deal? No. Again, this is delayed. So we get houses in the contract, and usually it's 2 or 3 years down the road is when you start cashing in. And I've had this house for 2 years, so it's cashing in 2 years later, which is it's perfect. All right, let's transition to our game plan, Rick. So I guess the moral of the story on the mindset is you can do it if you put your mind to it and you get us involved and you lean on the community, you lean on your coaches, and you set goals that are realistic, number one, and then you have a strong why. We talked about your why. Because if you don't have a strong why, then you're going to compare yourself. I'm going to start comparing myself to Rick and be like, I can't do five or just whatever the excuse is. You got to have a strong why. And everybody's why is different, Rick.
Yeah.
And you got to
Yeah.
peel back the layers and really dig deep on what your why is. Because if you had a really strong why, then making dials, you're not going to miss that. You're not going to not do dials because of your why, right? Transitioning to game plan, we came across a deal, and hopefully we can have Jeff Cody on later on. But he ran into a free and clear home, and traditionally, again, the four game plans are a lease purchase, owner financing, and owner financing is if the house is free and clear. Lease purchase, there's a mortgage on it. Subject to buying the house, subject to the existing mortgage. So obviously, there's a mortgage. Title transfers to us. We own the home. The loan stays in the seller's name, and then executive lease purchase and the sign out, which is what we talked about last week. Jeff ran into Rick a deal where the seller was free and clear, but did not want to do the owner financing component. And there's probably reasons why, and that's why we love creative real estate because you can do whatever you want. Just because
And
it's free and clear it's not automatically owner finance.
you can adapt to the situation.
Yeah. So if the seller doesn't want the title to transfer, you still can do a lease purchase. And the benefits of that, Rick, what are the benefits of title not transferring, even though there's free and clear?
If it doesn't transfer, the seller gets the depreciation and tax benefits. That's one of the things. They also don't necessarily have to worry about foreclosing, although as we talked about, we can mitigate that anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are two of the biggest benefits. But a lot of times, I recall a couple of years ago, I was talking to a seller about owner financing, and he was good with it until I talked about the deed transferring, and I thought he was going to jump physically at me. And because I was on an appointment when I said that, and I said, no, don't worry, we can structure it still as an owner finance, but do it as a contract for deed or land contract rather
Right.
than go to a lease purchase. And I could have done a lease purchase as well.
Yeah. So again, lease purchase normally, like I said in the beginning, lease purchase typically will have a mortgage on it. We're simply going to service that loan. We're going to make payments directly to the mortgage company that they have their own insurance. Again, you didn't talk about that. The insurance typically is with mortgages that is embedded in the escrow, right? PITF, and then the taxes as well, right? It's in that payment. So with owner financing, title transfers, the insurance follows the title, right? So if we were to buy it, owner financing, the title would transfer. We would then get our own insurance. And then the seller is now acting as the bank. They're in first position. They're acting as bank. So whatever payment we're giving them, again, it's going directly to the mortgage company, or in this case, the bank in air quotes. The fear of some of the sellers doing owner financing, like you said, is hypothetical because we've never done it, right? We've always made our payments and because of our exit strategy. And we're going to get into the buyer side in future episodes, but we're going to continue to make those payments regardless of what happens with our tenant buyers, right? That's just ethic wise. That's what we do. So we've never been foreclosed on, right? But a fear of the sellers is, hypothetically, let's say we get run over a bus and we stop making payments, they would have to then go through the process of foreclosing, and that could get costly for the seller. And they don't, that's their fear. So what you said, so describe that again, because we glossed over it, but describe contract for deed or a land contract.
So contract for deed, land contract is basically the same thing. It's just the deed does transfer, but it doesn't physically go to us. It's held, but usually held by their attorney until paid in full.
So it's not recorded, right? Or is it recorded? Yeah, not recorded.
Yeah. I don't think it's recorded. It doesn't
Yes.
transfer to us. It's not, it normally on an owner finance, it is recorded and everything completely transfers. But much like the bank, you don't get your deed. I don't have the deed on my property. Bank
Yeah.
does.
Right. So it's held with an attorney. We still get the benefits of owning the home, even though the title is not, physically has been recorded. We still get the benefits of owning the home. We get the depreciation and all that kind of stuff. So the benefits, again, let's go back. The benefits of lease purchase is they get all the benefits. Again, it turns into almost like a rental property for them, right? Because title state, you're just making payments to them. It's like a rental property for them. So they get depreciation, they get all the rental income. They can do write-offs if there's any improvements made to the house, blah, 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 right?
It's just they're not dealing with any of the tenant,
Yeah.
landlord tenant leaks.
Yeah. And then the benefits of being the bank is they're simply just receiving, it's almost like an annuity payment, right? They're just receiving the payment, and typically it's around 5 years when we pay them off. So a lot of times we'll pay them off early, but some sellers don't want to get paid off early, like Chris's office, right? The seller specifically said, don't pay me off. If I die, I want to continue to make those payments go to my kids. Right. So he was adamant that Chris, I think it was a 20-year deal. He said, don't pay me off. So some sellers want that. They want that longer term for whatever reasons. Could be capital gains, could be estate planning. That's why we typically do the owner financing, for those two reasons. But again, sellers have different situations, right? What if they don't want the title to transfer? So let's just do a lease purchase. That's fine. And then the payments that we make to them are going to be principal only. It's going to come off the purchase price of the home. So they should know that in advance. We don't get the benefits of owning the home. That's the only issue.
Now, the only catch to that is if they want to do an owner finance and it's owner occupied currently, within that before the 3 years is up, because you have that capital gains exclusion, you don't want to go past the 3 years. And at that point, you need to convert it over to an owner finance.
Yeah. So $250,000. Again, we're not CPAs, but $250,000 if you're single, $500,000 exclusion if you're married. Awesome stuff. Cool. So let's transition to our cool down, Rick. This week is another In the Trenches boot camp in Rhode Island.
Yep. Exciting.
Yeah. And we've had a lot of good feedback from students that have gone there. It's in Newport, Rhode Island. And what the students do, or you don't have to be a student. You can be Joe Schmo coming out the streets, but you go to the office of Chris, Zach, and Nick, and so first day, so describe it as 3 days, right? So just describe the 3 days, like day 1, day 2, day 3.
2.5 days. And the first day, what we do is we make calls, and that's where you can bring any of your leads with you, and we'll actually do the calls for you. And so it's live. What we do is we'll split up into groups. It's usually Chris in one room, Zach in another room, and depending on the size of the number of people there, and then someone with me or one of the other coaches in the third room. And we just make the calls, and the success rates that we've had are amazing. So people can hear us actually, and that's why we call it In the Trenches. People can hear us and get a much more one-on-one type feeling out of it. They can see how we're dealing with the sellers. It's just they get to experience that.
Yeah. You think about it, and a lot of people that maybe be listening or they're in the community have tried other coaching programs, right? And I'm not sure there's a coaching program that is more involved than what we do as far as I want. You got the CEO and the COO making dials to sellers for you, which is, it's almost unheard of, right? So you're in this community where we're going to be step by step with you. And we're not, it's not fluff. We're not just saying that to get you in. We do it, right? We tell you, this is what we're going to do if you come in, and then we do it. I've gone on appointments so there's somebody local that's in my area, and he's like, hey, can you come to the appointment with me? So I went to the appointment with him, and I talked to the seller about the kitchen table with him, right? So he can see how an appointment works, right? You guys in the Northeast, I think Zach has been on appointments for a couple of short calls. So we're literally literally.
Right. And if we're physically on the appointments with people, we're on the phone with the sellers while they're on the appointment.
Right. And it gives us a degree of credibility, right? So it gives the student a degree of credibility, like, hey, I have these people that have my back. What about the second day? What do they do the second day?
So the second, we'll go over tools and resources that are the tools system. And we also do, most of the day is spent doing deal structures. And so going over the 4 different deal structures that we always go over, and then mindset to get them prepared for it. And then we talk about appointment protocol, how we handle that. But most of the day is spent on doing deal structures and talking about having live Q&A. So it fills up the day.
Yeah. When I noticed too, is that you might go over a deal that you talked to the seller the previous day, right? So let's say hypothetically, Zach talked to the seller, and then let's say the seller responds, and you guys are going to go over that deal the next day, and you're going to go through the payday ones, the payday twos, payday threes. Hey, this is what it's going to look like if it goes full term. This is how much you'll make. This is what the seller's going to get. So they get a live deal structure right there.
Right. We go, basically, they get to witness firsthand the whole life cycle of it. And then sometimes it may go beyond deal structures, because I know we've had cases where Nick will do a live buyer's meeting.
Yep.
With a buyer. It's pretty.
Yeah, I think I talked over you, but yeah, so we'll have Nick on to talk about the buyer side again, because, and we talked about it, and we'll get into the day 3. But what I talk to students about is there are 3 families that are affected. You have the seller and their family, because you're helping them get underneath. It could be a problem. It's not a problem for everybody, but let's say they're having a hard time selling. So we come in, hey, let's agree on the terms. So we agree on this family. So they're getting their max money. And then you got the buyer side, which is we're affecting that life, right? Because maybe they're having a little hiccup in the credit. Maybe they're self-employed, but they want to own a home. So we put them into our rent to own situation. And then it's our family that we're being affected, right? Because we're getting one from our buyers. So you're affecting 3 lives in each of our transactions, right? So talk about the third day. I know it sounds like it's a half day, but what are you doing on the third day?
The third day is strategizing. So we talk about KPIs and whatnot, and then we'll break up. Some people will go in with Chris or whoever. They'll go in with one of us, as we did before, or if it's a smaller group, we'll just do it all together. And we'll talk about the same thing we talked about last week, KPIs. We'll look at, okay, what are their goals, their why, their goals. We'll break that down to say, okay, this is how many appointments you're going to have these takens, or these are how many deals you need to have, then how many appointments you need to get those deals. And then we break it all the way down to how many dials will be needed to do.
Yeah, I remember doing that. I came to the office and did a strategy, right? And they're like, oh, okay, what is your goal? And again, I've talked about it. I'm in a very high-end area. Minimum, the price of the homes, I generally speak to minimum 500,000, but it's mostly 8, 9, or $1 million homes, right? So payday ones are very large for me. So I don't necessarily, yes, a deal a month would be awesome, because then I would be a millionaire. And I probably, if I did a deal a month, I would be up there in the high 6 figures, but I don't necessarily need that right now. So let's say 5 deals. And so I would tell them, okay, I want 5 deals. And I tell them what my KPIs are. And Zach says, okay, all you need is 3 more leads a week. Right. And I think he said that to you too. Right? You need X amount of dials, and you need 3 more leads a week, and then you'll reach your goal. And I was like, "Oh, really? That's it?" Right?
Yeah, my game plan when I did my strategy session with them was I had a VA that was supporting me 10 hours a week. And they said, you need 3 more leads a week and it'll totally change your business. And he said, increase your VA's hours by 5 more hours a week. So I did that. And sure enough, like clockwork, it changed everything.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Yeah, enjoy this. I'm not sure how many times you've done that in the trenches. I'm on the West Coast, so sometimes it's hard for me to get out to Rhode Island. So I'm gonna get out there in April. You're out there this week, so good
Yep.
luck with that. Yeah, good
I'll be
luck
at
with that. What's
I'll
up?
be at the March. I'll be at the March one as well.
Oh, you have in March? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think coming out in April, so that's gonna be awesome because we don't have the summit, so I guess this will be my summit. But good stuff. I appreciate you, Rick, coming on, and like I said, we'll try and get Jeff Cody and Nick in the here in next.
Yep, that'd be terrific. And it's awesome as always, Rust.
Yep. Cool. See you next week, Rick.
All right, Rust, have a great one.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Bye.